Alice in Borderland has hundreds of deaths. From the brutal military tactics of the King of Spades to the many victims of visas running out, we're about to break down every death in the show, so be sure to subscribe and let's get into it. This is not a world of heroes and villains in the traditional sense, but one of victims and survivors, where the line between the two is as thin as the playing cards the games are inspired by. The cost of a few more days of life is measured in bodies, and the games are designed to exact the highest possible toll, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. The story begins, as many do, with loss. Before Ryohei Arisu is ever thrust into the deadly games, his life is already full of trauma from the off-screen death of his mother, a quiet sorrow that contributes to the aimless dissatisfaction he feels with his existence. It is this aimlessness that puts him on the streets with his best friends, Karub and Chota, leading them to cause a minor disruption in Shibuya Crossing. They hide in a subway restroom, and when they emerge, the world they knew is gone, replaced by a silent, empty metropolis. This strange new paradise quickly reveals its true, horrifying nature when a massive electronic billboard directs them to a nearby building for their first game. Inside, they are given phones that reveal the challenge, a 3 of clubs game called Dead or Alive. The rules are deceptively simple. They must choose between 2 doors, one marked Live and the other Die, within a strict time limit. The terrifying reality of the Borderlands announces itself with immediate violence. A frantic and panicked young woman named Minami, desperate to escape the room, makes a bolt for one of the doors. She chooses incorrectly. In an instant, a laser beam shoots from the ceiling and pierces her skull, killing her where she stands. Her death is the group's first bloody lesson in the cruel consequences of failure. Arisu's sharp intellect allows him to deduce the correct path based on the building's layout, and he guides his friends and a fellow player, Shibuki, to safety. They successfully clear the game and are granted a 3-day visa, a temporary shield from death. But the world has one more lesson for them. As they stand outside, they witness a nearby man whose visa has just expired. Having had enough, he declares he is done playing. From the sky above, another singular laser shoots down and executes him on the spot. His death confirms Shibuki's grim explanation. To live, they must keep playing. As the survivors process this new reality, the sky fills with countless similar red beams, a horrifying spectacle, implying the simultaneous executions of at least 41 other unnamed players, whose time had also run out. The very first step into the Borderlands concludes with a surprising amount of bloodshed, a clear and brutal statement of intent from the game masters. As the next day begins, the constant threat of the visa system is reinforced as another unnamed player is killed by an off-screen laser. We are also told that at least 2 other players died from poison gas in a previous, unseen game. With Arisu's friend Chota injured from the first match, Arisu and Karube must enter another trial to earn more time. This leads them to a vast apartment complex for a 5 of spades game titled Tag. As a spades game, it is an immense test of the player's physical ability. The objective is to avoid being tagged by the beings chosen as It, while searching for a hidden safe zone within a 20-minute time limit. The game's It is revealed to be a terrifying figure in a horse mask, armed with a submachine gun, who immediately begins a systematic hunt, shooting at anyone he sees. The slaughter is swift and merciless. The horse-headed tagger guns down an unnamed man, quickly followed by a player named Nitobi. The game's boundaries are just as lethal as the tagger, as when a player named Doi attempts to leave the play area to enter restricted lands, he is instantly eliminated by a laser from the sky. The hunter continues his rampage, killing players Aya, Mai, Rai, and Jin in a hail of unrelenting gunfire. While the carnage unfolds, Arisu partners with the agile Usagi to locate the safe room, while Karubi and a formidable man named Aguni decide to confront the tagger head-on. The plan works, but the game has one final cruel twist. After Arisu and Usagi clear the game, explosive collars fastened around the necks of both the male tagger and a second female tagger who was guarding the safe room detonate, killing them both. The shocking revelation is that the hunters were not game masters. They were players just like everyone else, forced into their deadly roles, facing their own deaths if they refused to play. This chapter of survival adds another 12 deaths to the toll, revealing that even those who seem to be in control are merely pawns in a larger, more vicious system. The psychological weight of the Borderlands begins to crush Arisu. He feels an immense guilt over the deaths in the tag game, a burden that will only grow heavier as more games go by. His situation becomes dire as Chota's leg injury worsens, and both his and Shibuki's visas are only a few hours from expiring. The 4 friends are left with no choice but to enter another game together, a decision that will lead them to the most emotionally devastating trial of the entire series. They arrive at a botanical garden for a 7 of Hearts game called Hide and Seek. Hearts games are notoriously cruel, designed to manipulate emotions and break trust, and a difficulty of 7 is dangerously high. The rules are a monstrous perversion of the classic children's game. One player is designated the wolf, and the other 3 are lambs. To win, a lamb must find and make eye contact with the wolf, which transfers the role. When the timer runs out, whoever is the wolf is the sole survivor. The 3 lambs are killed by an explosive collar. It is not a game of hiding, but a forced hunt where they must sacrifice their friends to live. The game immediately shatters their bond. The wolf role is passed between them through panicked glances, and years of deep-seated resentments and unspoken frustrations boil to the surface. Yet, even as they are torn apart by the game's brutal logic, memories of their friendship, of the genuine love they shared, begin to surface. Overwhelmed by love and guilt, Arisu, who is the wolf, decides he cannot win this way and tries to give up, wanting one of his friends to live. But they have made their own decision. In the final, heart-wrenching seconds, his friends hide from him, each one choosing to sacrifice themselves so he can survive. Karuba reveals himself to Arisu but deliberately averts his gaze, refusing to take the role of wolf and seal his friend's fate. The timer hits 0. The collars on the 3 lamps detonate. Arisu is forced to watch as Karuba is killed instantly, his death followed by the off-screen executions of his other 2 friends, Chota and Shibuki. Arisu has survived, but at the cost of everyone he held dear. The game claims 3 lives, a targeted emotional slaughter designed to break him completely. The loss of his friends leaves Arisu a shattered man, giving up on life until he is found by Usagi. The story delves into her own past, revealing that her beloved father, Shigenori Usagi, had committed suicide after a public scandal, a flashback that highlights her own deep understanding of loss. This shared pain allows her to connect with Arisu, convincing him to live on in his friend's memory. To extend their visas, they enter a 4 of clubs game called Distance, located in a long underpass. Almost immediately, a new, non-game danger appears. A vicious Black Panther emerges from the darkness and attacks the players. It brutally mauls a player named Cezanne to death, though he manages to stab the panther multiple times with a knife, causing it to die from its injuries shortly after. The primal nature of this world is further emphasized when Usagi is later forced to kill a rabbit for food, snapping its neck. During the game, a massive tidal wave of water floods the tunnel, and a player named Yamane is swallowed by the rushing water and crushed to death. Arisu and Usagi survive by realizing the bus they started in was the goal all along. This trial adds 5 more to the death count, a mix of animal, human, and environmental fatalities that proves the Borderlands is lethal even outside the formal rules of a game. With a renewed sense of purpose, Arisu and Usagi set out to find the beach, a rumored sanctuary that might hold answers. They eventually find it, a luxurious hotel full of other players, a supposed utopia led by a charismatic man called Hatter. The beach operates on the belief that collecting a full deck of cards is the key to escape, and they do so as a collective. However, its idyllic facade hides a brutal reality. One of its 3 rules is death to all traitors, a law enforced without mercy. The illusion of safety is a thin one. We see 5 unnamed players executed. During an off-screen 10 of clubs game, 1 man is lasered, with 7 more dying as well. The beach's militant faction, led by the intimidating Aguni, casually hunts wild boar and eagles for sport and food. The place is rife with death. An unnamed man loses his grip on a rising elevator and falls to his demise. Aguni is seen shooting and beating a tiger to death, while the unhinged Naragi shoots someone. The silent swordsman, known as Last Boss, slices through another player with his katana. An unnamed girl is electrocuted by a stray wire, and it's mentioned that one of Hatter's subordinates took his own life by hanging himself. The beach is not a utopia, it is a pressure cooker of violence and paranoia, and it claims 21 lives before its true purpose is even fully revealed. The fragile society of the beach continues to crumble. It is mentioned that at least 2 players who attempted to escape Tokyo by boat were executed by lasers for their efforts. The militants' brutal enforcement of Hatter's Law continues, with the bodies of 11 players they have executed put on display as a grim warning, and at least 1 other killed off-screen. The simmering tension between Hatter and Aguni, his second-in-command, finally reaches its breaking point. In a shocking betrayal, the Hatter is shot in the chest and killed by Aguni. The murder of their charismatic leader throws the beach into chaos, creating a power vacuum that is filled with blood. Before a new order can be established, a young woman named Momoka Inoue is found dead in the main lobby, a knife plunged into her chest. It is later revealed she committed suicide, an act designed to trigger the final, deadliest game at the beach, the 10 of Hearts Witch Hunt. The objective is simple and horrifying. Find Momoka's killer, the witch, and burn them on a massive bonfire. The events leading to this game add another 16 deaths to the tally, setting the stage for an all-out massacre, the Great Massacre at the beach. Chaos immediately consumes the hotel lobby. Aguni, having seized control, declares that if the witch does not confess, he will burn everyone in the hotel until the game is cleared. He gives the order, and his militants open fire on the terrified crowd, transforming the game into a bloody, indiscriminate purge. The death toll skyrockets in a horrific display of violence. A player named Uda is impaled from behind by the katana-wielding Last Boss. The sadistic Naragi begins a killing spree, shooting a player named Yu and 3 other unnamed people. The militants continue the slaughter, gunning down 2 more players. Naragi claims another victim, while an unnamed militant shoots and kills a woman named Suzuka. The carnage is relentless, with 14 more unnamed players shot dead by the militants. Naragi takes to a higher vantage point with a sniper rifle, killing 2 more men. A player named Joe is shot through the chest by another player, Psycho. The militants execute 2 more men, a woman, and then 2 more players. Naragi claims another life with a precise headshot. A brief flashback reveals 5 players being killed by arrows in some prior unknown game, a reminder that death in this world has many forms. Back at the beach, the massacre continues, with the militants killing 10 more players on screen, and the bodies of another 9 are shown scattered throughout the burning hotel. The witch hunt proves to be the single most lethal event of the season, adding a horrifying 56 deaths to the total, turning the supposed paradise into a bloodbath. As the witch hunt reaches its wild close, the aftermath of the massacre is clear, with the bodies of 8 more players shot by the militants littering the floor. Arisu, having been freed from captivity by Usagi, confronts Aguni and reveals the truth he has deduced. He explains that Aguni is not the witch, but he did kill Hatter. A series of flashbacks reveals the tragic story. Hatter had been a good friend to Aguni, but the power of leading the beach corrupted him, turning him into a tyrant who would execute his own followers. Aguni killed him to stop his descent into madness. With that truth exposed, Arisu reveals his final deduction. Momoko was the witch. She stabbed herself to initiate the game. At this moment, Momoko's friend, Asahi Kujo, steps forward and makes a stunning confession. She and Momoko were dealers, individuals who helped facilitate the games. For revealing her identity, a laser from the sky instantly executes her, but the killing is not over. Even with the game technically solved, Naragi continues his rampage, shooting a player named June, another unnamed man, and then gunning down 13 more players in the fiery chaos. The crazy swordsman chooses to die in the Inferno and is burned alive off-screen inside the collapsing resort. In the aftermath, Arisu and Usagi find a video on Asahi's phone that leads them to what they believe is the Game Master's headquarters, an underground control room. Inside, they find no masterminds, only more victims, the bodies of 14 unnamed dealers, all executed by lasers. A recording from a dead survivor also shows at least 5 players who died in other unknown games, and mentions another girl who died off-screen. Season 1 concludes with one last shocking reveal from Mira, a beach executive who now appears on every screen in the city, announcing the next stage, Games Against the Face Cards. The final episode adds a grim 50 deaths to the ledger, bringing the season's total to a staggering 197 kills. Also, of everyone watching, only 1% is subscribed, so you guys better get it to at least 5%, otherwise, I don't know. Just please subscribe, thank you. Season 2 begins with no respite. The survivors are immediately thrust into a new, more dangerous phase where the entire city of Tokyo is the arena. The first face card to reveal himself is the King of Spades, a masked, heavily armed man who is less a game master and more a force of nature. He appears at the Shibuya intersection where the survivors have gathered and opens fire without warning. His assault is brutally efficient. He shoots and kills players named Hiro and Mizuki, along with another unnamed man. His initial attack on the crowd claims the lives of 19 unnamed players. One man who is shot in the stomach dies slowly from his injury. The bodies of 5 more of his victims are shown strewn across the pavement. The king continues his relentless hunt, killing 2 more players before executing Lily, Yui, Tomotsu, and Shoto with single shots to the head. He then hijacks a car, running over 5 players before getting out to shoot 5 more. An unnamed woman is gunned down, and the corpses of 2 more victims are shown. The King of Spades single-handedly establishes the terrifying new stakes of the face card games, claiming 47 lives in his opening massacre alone. Having gaped with their lives, Arisu's group decides they can no longer be passive prey. They must go on the offensive. They choose to target the King of Clubs, knowing that his games are based on teamwork, which is their greatest strength. They find the game at a container port and are met by the king himself, a charismatic nudist named Kyuma, and his team of fellow citizens of the Borderlands. The game is Osmosis, a complex battle for points. During a critical moment in the game, Kyuma's team launches an assault on Arisu's base. One of Kyuma's teammates, Sogo Shitara, makes a strategic sacrifice. He touches the enemy base pole, which is a lethal act, but does so in a way that transfers his points, ultimately leading to his execution by laser, but putting his team ahead in the score. His single, calculated death turns the tide of the game. With his team on the brink of losing, Tata, haunted by a past failure, resolves to make a meaningful sacrifice. In a gruesome and desperate act, he smashes his own hand against a container to break his wrist and remove his point bracelet, which he then gives to Arisu. This act of selfless redemption gives Arisu's team the points they need to win, but Tata dies in Arisu's arms from catastrophic blood loss. Their victory is a hollow one, made all the more bitter by what comes next. As the game concludes, lasers descend from the sky and execute the defeated King of Clubs, Jinji Kyuma, and his entire team, Takumi Maki, Goken Kanzaki, and Uta Kisaragi, all of whom accept their fate with a strange sense of grace. The story then shifts to Chishiya, who finds himself in a game of pure psychological torture, solitary confinement, the domain of the Jack of Hearts. The players are fitted with explosive collars and must rely on others to tell them the card suit on the back of their neck to survive each round. The game is a masterclass in paranoia, and the deaths come quickly. Genki Kiryu's collar explodes after he guesses incorrectly. He is followed by the off-screen detonations that kill Akifumi Seto, Mesa Tokui, Shinobu Furuta, Mika Takeda, and Junbei Nagano. The deaths continue with Eiko Yamaguchi, Hiroto Yamashita, Masashi Ota, and Kakeru Kishoi. Urumi Akamaki dies on-screen when her collar explodes, followed by the off-screen deaths of Motohiko Kaneko, Satomi Aoki, and Hiroshi Tomita. The final player to die from a wrong guess is Aoki, whose collar explodes when he fails to answer in time. The game proves to be ruthlessly effective, claiming 20 lives through paranoia and betrayal. A player named Kotoko Shiga, who is allied with the Jack, is killed when her collar explodes off-screen. Chishiya, through brilliant observation, eventually identifies the Jack of Hearts as Enji Matsushita. Upon being discovered, Matsushita intentionally guesses his own suit incorrectly to avoid being tortured, allowing his collar to explode off-screen, thus ending the game. It is also mentioned during this game that another player, a serial killer named Tsunato Banda, had killed 4 unnamed girls prior to the events of the series. Meanwhile, the documentary filmmaker Kaito Kameyama, whose work chronicled life in the Borderlands, is killed by the King of Spades. The King's relentless hunt is shown in Kameyama's footage, which captures him slaughtering 18 unnamed players in a neighborhood before killing Kameyama himself, and also shows the murder of another unnamed girl. The footage also reveals the corpses of 3 other players who died from unknown causes. The combination of psychological games and the King of Spades' brutal war of attrition adds another 26 deaths to the ever-growing tally. The fragmented recordings left behind by the filmmaker offer more glimpses into the widespread death across Tokyo. A flashback reveals the horrifying 7 of Spades game, Boiling Death, in which a football stadium collapses and is filled with boiling water, killing 16 unnamed players trapped inside. The city is littered with the casualties of this world. The body of a man who hanged himself is shown, as is the corpse of a woman who died of unknown causes. It's also briefly mentioned that the Queen of Diamonds and the Jack of Spades have been defeated in their own off-screen games, their unseen deaths confirming that other brutal trials are constantly unfolding across the city. This collection of past and present tragedies adds another 20 deaths to the count, broadening the scope of the suffering. Arisu and Usagi are eventually reunited just in time for the Queen of Spades game, Checkmate. It's a team-based game of conversion, but through teamwork and a powerful appeal to the other player's desire to return home, Arisu and Usagi emerge victorious. The defeated Queen of Spades, a woman named Risa, is executed by a laser from the sky. Elsewhere, Chishiya enters the King of Diamonds game, Beauty Contest. This trial is a cruel exercise in game theory, where players who fall too far behind are eliminated by having a vat of sulfuric acid poured on them from above. The deaths are horrific. A player named Takashi Asuma is the first to be melted by the acid, followed by Benzo Yashigi. Later in the game, Hinako Diamond also loses and is gruesomely eliminated. The game comes down to Chishiya and the King of Diamonds, a former lawyer named Keiichi Kuzuryu. In a profound final act, Kuzuryu, having had his perspective on life changed by Chishiya, deliberately chooses the number 0, ensuring his own death to spare his opponent. He is melted by the acid, making Chishiya the winner in a game he was prepared to lose. This chapter of the face card games is also peppered with other deaths: a dead deer, the body of a girl with neck injuries from a flashback, and mentions of 20 people who died from diseases and a boy named Hayato, who died from illness in the past, bringing this section's total to 28. With only the King of Spades and the Queen of Hearts remaining, the final act begins. A brief montage shows the dangers Anne and Queen have faced while clearing other games. The body of a man who slit his own throat is seen. Another falls to his death from a narrow beam. 4 men are lasered to death after losing their grip on climbing ropes. An unnamed man's collar explodes after losing to the Jack of Diamonds, with another dying off-screen in the same manner. The Queen of Clubs and her partner both fall to their deaths. The Jack of Clubs also falls from his climbing rope game, and the Jack of Diamonds is killed by his own collar. The King of Hearts is also noted as having been killed off-screen. This grim tally is violently interrupted by the King of Spades, who arrives for the final battle. He shoots 4 unnamed players, then 8 more men, then another group of 4. The bodies of 3 more of his victims are shown before he kills one last man on screen. In a desperate, coordinated assault, the survivors lure the king into a drugstore they have rigged to explode. After a brutal and bloody fight, a severely wounded Aguni tackles the king into the store. The bomb detonates, and the king is engulfed in the blast. Still barely alive, he hands his gun to Aguni, who grants his final request and executes him, finally ending his reign of terror. This final climactic confrontation adds another 32 deaths to the list, leaving only 1 game left to play. Arisu and a wounded Usagi make their way to the final arena to face the Queen of Hearts, who is revealed to be Mira. Her game is not one of violence, but of insane levels of psychological warfare. She offers Arisu an escape, telling him this entire world is a hallucination born from his own guilt over the deaths of his friends. She nearly succeeds in breaking him, but Usagi grounds him in reality with a shocking act of self-harm, slicing her own wrist to prove their pain is real. His resolve restored, Arisu agrees to finish the game of croquet. Having lost her psychological battle, Mira calmly accepts her fate. A laser descends from the sky and executes her, the final game master to fall. With all games cleared, the survivors are given a choice: stay or return. They all choose to return. Arisu wakes up in a hospital learning that a massive meteor had struck Tokyo. His heart and the hearts of all the other survivors had stopped for 1 minute, and in that liminal space between life and death, they experienced the Borderlands. While Arisu, Karubi, and Chodo were together just before the disaster, two of their other high school friends, Kairi Nakamura and Kahiro Sato, are mentioned to have died in the meteor strike. The final episode adds just 3 more names to the ledger, bringing the total death count across 2 seasons to a mind-boggling 364. As Arisu and Usagi meet in this new, real world, drawn together by a memory they can't consciously access, the camera finds a deck of playing cards on a nearby table. The wind scatters all of them, except for one left glinting in the sun, the Joker. The games may be over, but the story and the possibility of death is not quite finished. So this has been every death in Alice in Borderland. Which one hit you the hardest? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more Alice content and theories, click the video on screen now.